There's a really important issue that I'd be interested in your views on here. You see, I've heard progressive feminists say this. That Jordan Peterson, it's all his fault. He's turning our young men into right-wing extremists. Isn't the reality that it's the progressives constantly telling those young men that they're no good, they're toxic because they're masculine, that's driving them to behave, to look for better answers?
So the good men that I know, and the amazing thing is I am surrounded by good men. My husband, my sons, the men at my church, they are genuinely men who have rejected both machismo and the beta male. I am just going to go along. I'm not going to step up. I'm not going to lead. I'm not going to do hard things. They do those hard things. I am surrounded by good men. They will all take a bullet, for the vulnerable. They will step up. They will serve. They will sacrifice. They do all of these things. They're strong and they're tender. I actually have noticed this trend in all of the good men in my life, that they are tender. I tend to be a lower emotion woman, but I see them crying during baptisms or baby dedications, or not crying, but tearing up and being moved by those kinds of things. Because good men are tender men, and they know what people are saying about them, especially teen boys. I'm enraged at the kind of messages that teen boys specifically hear in their classrooms on social media, largely from entertainment these days. And it is that you are inherently bad because of your sex, when the exact opposite is true. The world needs good men, good young men, to be voluntarily undertaking challenges on behalf of themselves and then their communities. And I think it's an absolute crime, the way that we're talking about, especially as a mom of 2 teen boys. It just makes me livid. But I'll tell you something about the next generation of boys. They're forming their own little tribes. And I think that's one reason why we are seeing this next generation swing more to the right. And first of all, the right, in my mind, simply just means the demographic that is the most connected to economic, biological, and historical reality. That is what the right has become. It's not just the gun-toting, like get back to the gold standard. No, it's just people that are living in reality.
The important distinction, that's beautifully illustrated by, I can't remember which writer in here, with reference to the 9/11. It was men who ploughed those planes murderously into those towers. Yeah. That's not a good role model for men or what their behaviour, but it was men who risked their lives and went to incredible lengths then as rescuers. Not only men, but overwhelmingly it was men.
That's right.
Men behaving nobly and getting that balance right. No one's advocating for the Andrew Tate model of masculinity if they're sincere in this debate.
Well, you can be very attracted to a counterfeit if you've never had exposure to something that is authentic. And there are a lot of young boys these days that are only hearing the messages of toxic masculinity. And the only way that they're being told that they can live is by being vacuous and passive. And they need real men in their life. And if it's not in their family, they'll find some man to follow. And I just pray that it's somebody like you, and it's somebody like Jordan, and somebody like a lot of the different people on the ARC advisory board. I follow a lot of them, and I'm so grateful that their voices are being amplified.
I find an enormous hunger just to simply talk from young men, even if they've got great relationships with their own dad. Yeah. They not only model, they like what one young fella called to me war stories. He didn't mean stories about, machine gunning somebody down. He meant just your life experiences. What happened in the down times? What happened, I often get asked, when you were acting Prime Minister at the time of 9/11, what's it like? What did you go through? Tell me about it. Storytelling's a big part of how people perceive themselves or find their self-perception, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and I think this too is like we have tried to, in the name of equality, we have tried to make men and women the same. And obviously we're both social creatures, we're both relational creatures, but we connect differently. Women tend to form relationships face to face. We can just sit down, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, and just be like, tell me everything that's going on. Men form relationships side by side. They tend to need to do something together, work together to achieve something great. be on the battlefield together, be on a sports team together. They need some kind of common goal that they are working towards. And we have stripped so many of the natural opportunities for boys to connect these days because we have labeled those kinds of activities toxic. So, there is a crisis of friendship among men, especially in the United States. There was some horrifying study that was done a couple of years ago that found that something like 50% of men, only had one good friend, and 20% didn't have any. Like, we have a crisis of friendship among men, and how can you expect men to thrive? Like, if you don't create these spaces where they can genuinely connect with one another and behold other good men so they can become like those good men.